Keanu Reeves made Sandra Bullock's birthday the most special day of her life. The night was quiet in Miami, but inside one heart there was noise, doubt, and longing. Sandra Bullock had grown used to the spotlight, the flashing cameras, the endless voices praising or criticizing. But when her birthday came closer, she felt a strange emptiness. She had everything people dream of: fame, success, respect. But what she wanted most was something she could not buy. She wanted to feel seen not as a celebrity, not as a star, but as a woman with real feelings. The world expected her to smile, to shine. But behind closed doors, she wondered if anyone truly remembered her heart. Keanu Reeves was in Los Angeles when he heard about Sandra's birthday. For years, their bond had been unique, more than just co-stars. They shared laughter during filming, comfort during personal storms, and respect that was never broken. He knew her struggles, the battles she kept silent. He remembered the way she supported him during the darkest days of his life, when grief nearly swallowed him whole. Now, as her birthday approached, he felt a quiet calling. He wanted to give her something no one else could, an experience that was pure, humble, and filled with meaning. The hook of this story begins here. What does a man who has everything stripped away, who knows loss, who knows silence, give to a woman who seems to have everything but longs for something deeper? Sandra sat alone the night before her birthday, scrolling through messages. Many people sent her flowers, gifts, luxury items, yet her heart remained restless. She whispered to herself, "What does happiness even look like now?" She thought of Keanu, his soft laugh, his ability to turn simple moments into treasure. Her chest tightened. She had not spoken to him in months. Meanwhile, Keanu was making quiet plans. No announcements, no press. He booked a small flight to Miami. He asked no assistants, no managers, no cameras. He only carried a single gift in his bag, a handwritten letter folded with care. Inside the letter were words he had wanted to say for years, words about friendship, resilience, and the power of kindness. The next morning, Sandra woke up to the sound of gentle waves outside her Miami home. She tried to smile, but something in her heart felt heavy. She walked to her balcony and whispered to the sea, "I wish for one true moment today." Little did she know, her wish was already traveling through the sky, on a plane where Keanu sat quietly, rehearsing what he would say when he saw her. The surprise began when Sandra opened her door just after noon. She expected another delivery of flowers. Instead, standing in front of her was Keanu Reeves, holding a small paper bag like an ordinary man visiting a friend. No cameras, no lights, no show. Just him with that familiar, humble smile. Her eyes widened, and for a moment she forgot to breathe. "Keanu?" she whispered. He nodded softly. "Happy birthday, Sandra." Her body froze. This was not another celebrity friend sending diamonds. This was not a fan gathering outside her gate. This was someone who knew her soul, who had felt her pain, who chose to come quietly without expectation. In that instant, her eyes filled with tears. The afternoon stretched into something magical. Keanu cooked her a simple meal in her kitchen, pasta with fresh tomatoes, garlic, and olive oil. She laughed as he struggled to find the right pan, and he teased her about how she still couldn't chop onions without crying. They ate together at her small wooden table. No audience, no staff. It was just two friends rediscovering the meaning of presence. But beneath the laughter, Sandra felt a growing ache. Why would he do all this for her? Why would he fly across states just to make sure she was not alone? As she watched him speak with such ease, she felt something shift in her chest, a mix of gratitude, confusion, and longing. When the sun began to set, Keanu handed her the letter. "Read this when you're alone," he said softly. Sandra wanted to open it immediately, but something in his eyes told her this was more than a birthday note. It was something heavy, personal, sacred. She tucked it against her heart, and they sat together on the balcony watching the sky turn golden. But deep down, Sandra wondered, what truth was hidden in that letter? Why did Keanu look almost nervous when he gave it to her? And most of all, why did her heart beat so fast, as if this day was about to change everything she thought she knew? The suspense grew as night arrived. Sandra finally opened the letter, her hands trembling. As her eyes moved over the first lines, she gasped. These were not just words of friendship. They were words that carried memories, regrets, and a confession she had never expected. The letter began, "Dear Sandra, I want to tell you something I have carried for many years." And with that, her birthday transformed into the beginning of a story she would never forget. The letter that changed everything. The night air in Miami was warm, But Sandra Bullock felt a chill as she unfolded Keanu's letter. Her hands trembled slightly. Not because she feared what was written, but because she knew in her heart that this was not just an ordinary message. It carried weight. It carried years of silence, of words unsaid. The first line made her pause, her lips parting as if to take in more air than her lungs could hold. Dear Sandra, I want to tell you something I have carried for many years. Her eyes raced over the page, but her heart slowed, each beat echoing louder than the one before. The words were not grand or decorated. They were simple, raw, written in the same way Keanu lived his life. Quiet, honest, stripped of ego. He wrote about the first time he met her on set, how he had felt a spark of recognition, as if they had known each other long before the cameras ever rolled. He wrote about the way her laughter had saved him during long, heavy days when grief consumed him. He admitted that sometimes, in moments of silence, he thought of her kindness and wondered if she knew how much she had mattered to him. Sandra's eyes blurred with tears. She pressed the letter to her chest, her breath shaking. She had always admired his humility, his resilience, but she never realized how deeply he had noticed her, how carefully he had carried her in his thoughts. Just then, Keanu stepped quietly back onto the balcony. He had given her privacy, but the sight of her tear-stained cheeks made his chest tighten. He wanted to look away, to give her space, but her eyes locked onto his, and for the first time in years there were no walls between them. Why didn't you ever tell me this? She asked, her voice breaking. Keanu sat beside her, his posture humble, almost uncertain. Because I didn't want to complicate your life. You had your path, your dreams, and I had mine. But I couldn't let another year pass without letting you know what you mean to me. The silence between them was heavy, but not empty. It was filled with everything unsaid. Sandra looked at him, her heart racing. For years she had wondered why their bond felt different. Why he was the one person she could trust in a world built on illusions. Now the truth was here, written in his gentle handwriting, spoken in his soft, steady tone. A storm of emotions battled inside her. Gratitude, confusion, fear. But above all, she felt a warmth she had not allowed herself to feel in a long time. She had spent years convincing herself that happiness was something distant, something fleeting. Yet here, on this balcony with Keanu's eyes watching her as if she was the only person in the world, happiness felt close enough to touch, to ease the tension. Keanu reached into the small paper bag he had carried. He pulled out a cupcake with a single candle. No luxury cake, no expensive design, just a cupcake from a tiny bakery he had found earlier. He lit the candle, the flame flickering in the night air, and pushed it toward her. Make a wish, he whispered. Sandra stared at the flame, her throat tightening. She could have wished for success, for endless youth, for all the things the world thought she wanted. Instead, her mind filled with one quiet hope. Please, let me hold on to this moment. Let it not fade away like everything else. She closed her eyes, blew out the candle, and for the first time in years, she felt like her wish might actually come true. But just as the night seemed perfect, a sound broke their peace. Her phone buzzed on the table. Sandra almost ignored it, but curiosity made her glance. The name flashing on the screen made her freeze. It was an old friend who had not called in years, someone tied to memories she had buried. Her hand shook as she answered. Hello? The voice on the other end was filled with urgency. Sandra, I didn't know who else to call. Something happened, and I think you need to know. It's about your past. Keanu leaned forward, sensing the change in her expression. Her eyes widened, her lips parting in disbelief. Whatever she had just heard was not small. It was something that could shatter the fragile peace of the evening. What do you mean? Sandra whispered, her voice unsteady. The caller's words came sharp and fast, leaving her breathless. And in that moment, Sandra realized her birthday was not only about Keanu's letter or the confession that had stirred her heart. It was also about a truth she had tried to escape, a truth that was coming back to claim her. She hung up slowly, her hand trembling. Keanu watched her carefully, his eyes filled with concern. Sandra, what's wrong? Her voice cracked as she answered. That call, it changes everything. The past returns. The silence after the phone call was heavier than the night air. Sandra Bullock sat frozen, her fingers still clutching the phone as if it might burn her if she let go. Her heart raced in uneven rhythms, and for a moment she could not find her voice. KeanuReeves leaned closer, his eyes steady but filled with concern. Sandra, he said softly. What did they say? She turned to him, her lips trembling. It's someone I thought I'd never hear from again. They said, there's something about my past I need to face, something I've been running away from. Keanu didn't press her. He simply waited, patient as always, giving her the space to breathe. But inside her, memories she had buried began to rise like shadows breaking through locked doors. Years ago, before the fame, before the endless interviews and red carpets, Sandra had faced a betrayal so personal that she swore she would never speak of it. It was tied to someone she once trusted, someone who had disappeared from her life without explanation. And now, on the very night she was trying to embrace Keanu's letter, that ghost had returned. She stood and walked to the edge of the balcony, gripping the railing so tightly her knuckles turned pale. The city lights sparkled below, but her eyes were clouded with old pain. "Keanu," she whispered, "you came all this way to give me kindness, and now I feel like I'm dragging you into something I promised myself I'd never revisit." He stepped beside her, his voice calm and steady. "You're not dragging me anywhere. You don't have to carry this alone. Not tonight. Not ever if you don't want to." His words were simple, but they sank deep into her heart. She realized how long she had been carrying her burdens alone, wearing a smile for the world while locking away her scars. Finally, she spoke, her voice shaking but determined. "Before everything you see now, the movies, the awards, the attention, there was a man I trusted. He promised to stand by me, but instead he used me. He left with secrets that nearly broke me. I thought he was gone forever, but now he's back." Keanu's jaw tightened slightly, not with anger toward her, but with quiet protectiveness. "And he reached out tonight?" She nodded, her throat tight. "Yes, he says he wants to see me. He says he has something I need to hear." The conflict inside her grew stronger with every breath. Should she ignore the call and focus on the rare peace she had found with Keanu? Or should she confront the past that had haunted her for so long, even if it risked reopening wounds? As if reading her thoughts, Keanu placed a gentle hand over hers. "Sometimes the only way to heal is to face what we've been running from, but you don't have to face it alone." His presence steadied her, but she still felt the tremor of fear inside. What if this meeting pulled her back into the pain she had fought so hard to escape? What if it destroyed the fragile hope she was starting to feel with Keanu? The night stretched on, heavy with questions. Finally, Sandra turned to him, her voice filled with quiet resolve. "If I do this, will you come with me?" Without hesitation, Keanu nodded. "Always." The next day, they drove together to a quiet cafe on the edge of the city, where Sandra's past was waiting. She felt her stomach twist with every mile, but Keanu's steady presence was like a shield. When they arrived, she saw him, the man from her past, sitting in the corner, older now, his eyes filled with something she could not yet read. Regret? Desperation? Her breath caught in her throat. The cafe grew silent around her. She felt the weight of years crashing down all at once. And then, as she took her first step forward, the man looked up, and his first words shattered the fragile air. "Sandra, there's something you never knew. And it changes everything." The revelation, the cafe was quiet, but inside Sandra Bullock's chest there was thunder. She stood still for a moment, her legs unwilling to move, her breath caught between fear and anger. Across the room, the man from her past watched her with tired eyes, his hands restless on the table. KeanuReeves stayed close, steady as a shadow, his calm presence grounding her even as old wounds reopened. Sandra finally stepped forward, her heels clicking softly on the tiled floor. Every sound seemed louder than it should be, every heartbeat echoing in her ears. She sat down across from the man, her voice cold but steady. "What do you want?" The man swallowed hard, his voice rough. "I want to tell you the truth I should have told you years ago. I made mistakes, but there are things you never knew. Things I couldn't explain back then." Sandra's jaw tightened. "You disappeared. You left me with nothing but questions. You broke my trust. Why should I believe anything you say now?" He lowered his gaze, shame flickering in his eyes. "Because it wasn't just about me. It was about you, too. And the truth is bigger than both of us." Keanu leaned forward slightly, his protective energy sharp but quiet, then stopped circling it. "Tell her what you came here to say." The man exhaled, his shoulders sagging. "Sandra, back then when we were together, I wasn't honest. I was caught in something dangerous. People I owed, choices I couldn't undo. I left not because I wanted to, but because staying would have dragged you down with me. I thought I was protecting you." Her chest tightened, anger and sorrow mixing inside her. "Protecting me?" she whispered. "You left without a word. You let me think I wasn't worth the truth. Do you know how much that broke me?" His eyes glistened with regret. "I know. and I will carry that forever. But there's more. Someone has been watching you, waiting for me to make contact again. I came back not just to apologize but to warn you. The words sank like stones in her chest. Keanu's eyes narrowed slightly, every muscle in his body alert. Warn her about what? The man glanced around the cafe, lowering his voice. They know about her. They know about me, and they won't stop until they've used everything against us. Sandra felt the room spin. Old betrayal had already scarred her, but this was something darker, something that threatened the fragile peace she had begun to find again. Keanu reached across the table, his hand brushing gently against hers. The small gesture steadied her, but his voice carried quiet steel. Then you came to the right place. Because if anyone tries to hurt her, they'll have to go through me first. The man nodded, but his eyes still held sorrow. I'm sorry, Sandra. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I couldn't stay silent any longer. Sandra's throat burned with unshed tears. She wanted to scream, to walk away, to never see his face again. Yet a part of her, the part that had always believed in kindness, wondered if there was still truth hidden beneath his regret. She stood slowly, her chair scraping against the floor. I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't even know if I can believe you, but I can't let the past hold me hostage anymore. With that, she turned and walked out of the cafe, her breath uneven but her steps steady. Keanu followed close, his hand lightly brushing her shoulder, silently reminding her that she wasn't alone. Outside, the Miami sun was bright, almost blinding. Sandra closed her eyes, letting the light wash over her face. Keanu's voice came soft but firm beside her. You don't have to decide everything today. What matters is this: you're not alone anymore. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Her eyes opened, meeting his. For a long moment, neither of them spoke, but everything was said in the silence. Then, as if fate wanted to remind them the past was not finished, Sandra's phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't the man. It was an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A distorted voice came through, chilling her blood. You should have stayed away, Sandra. Now it's too late. Her hand shook and Keanu's eyes hardened. The call ended abruptly, leaving only silence. The past was no longer a memory. It was alive, and it was coming for her. When the storm breaks, the unknown voice on the phone lingered in Sandra Bullock's ears like poison. She stood frozen on the sidewalk, the Miami heat forgotten, her heart pounding with dread. Keanu Reeves gently took the phone from her trembling hand and looked into her eyes, steady and unshaken. It's going to be all right, he said softly, though his jaw was tight. Whoever this is, they're trying to scare you. But they don't know me, and they don't know you. Sandra wanted to believe him, but fear gnawed at her chest. She had carried secrets before, survived betrayal. But this felt different. This was not about heartbreak, it was about danger. That night they returned to her home. Keanu checked every door, every window, his quiet movements filled with protective instinct. He had lived through enough loss to know how fragile safety could be. Sandra watched him, her chest aching. She had seen many men play heroes in movies, but here he was, silent, unassuming, yet more of a protector than anyone she had ever known. When they sat down, Sandra spoke, her voice low. Keanu, what if they're serious? What if they hurt the people I care about? He met her gaze, his voice steady. Then we face it together. No one gets to break you again, Sandra, not while I'm here. His words carried weight, and for the first time since the call, she felt a flicker of safety. But just as calm began to return, headlights swept across her living room window. A car slowed outside, Sandra's breath caught. Keanu moved closer to the curtain, peeking through the edge. The car idled for a moment, its engine humming in the still night before pulling away into the darkness. Sandra's body shook. They're watching, she whispered. Keanu put an arm around her shoulders, grounding her trembling frame. Then let them watch. They'll see I'm not leaving. His quiet strength gave her courage, but deep inside a storm of emotions built. Fear of the threat, anger at her past, and something else. A growing warmth for the man who refused to leave her side. The next day, Sandra decided she couldn't stay silent anymore. She arranged to meet with the police, but even there, the words from the distorted voice haunted her. You should have stayed away. Stayed away from what? From who? After the meeting, Keanu took her to a quiet park. They walked slowly, the trees swaying above them. She turned to him, her voice breaking. Why are you doing all this for me? Why risk yourself when you don't have to? He stopped, facing her, his dark eyes steady. Because I know what it's like to feel alone in the fight. And because you've been there for me in ways no one else was. You believed in me when I had nothing left to give. Now it's my turn." Her breath caught, her eyes filling with tears. She remembered those days. His grief, his silence, the way she had tried to remind him he wasn't invisible. And now here he was, her shield, her anchor. Suddenly a sound broke through the park's peace, the snap of a twig. Both of them froze. Keanu's hand instinctively moved to Sandra's arm, pulling her closer. From the trees, a shadow moved. A figure stepped forward, half hidden in the dim light. Sandra's chest tightened. It wasn't the man from her past. It was someone else, someone she didn't recognize. The figure's voice was low, threatening. "You were warned. Leave this city or you'll regret it." Keanu stepped in front of her, his stance calm but firm. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The figure hesitated, then slipped back into the shadows, vanishing as quickly as he appeared. Sandra's knees weakened, but Keanu's arms caught her before she fell. "They're serious," she whispered, panic in her voice. "This isn't just about my past, it's bigger than that." Keanu held her close, his voice low but unshaken. "Then let it be bigger. Because whatever it is, they don't know one thing. You are stronger than all of this, and I'll stand with you no matter how dark it gets." Her tears fell against his shirt, and in that moment, the fear twisted into something else. Despite the shadows closing in, she felt a truth she had been too afraid to admit. She wasn't just grateful for Keanu's presence. She needed him not just as a friend, but as the one person who could see her, protect her, and perhaps love her in the way she had always longed for. The storm was breaking, but in his arms, she felt a light she didn't want to lose. The light that never fades. The night after the park encounter was the hardest yet. Sandra Bullock lay awake in her Miami home. Her body tired, but her mind restless. Every sound outside felt like a threat. Every shadow a reminder that someone was watching. But when she turned her head, she saw Keanu Reeves sitting quietly near the window, keeping watch. He wasn't sleeping, wasn't distracted, just there, calm and steady, as if his presence alone could keep the darkness out. "You don't have to stay up all night," she whispered softly. He turned, giving her a small smile. "Maybe not. But I want to. You've spent too many nights carrying things alone. Not this time." His words sank deep into her chest. She wanted to cry, not from fear but from gratitude. She realized how rare it was for someone to give without expecting, to protect without wanting to control. Keanu was not just a friend, not just a protector. He was something more. The next morning, the man from her past called again, asking to meet one last time. His voice was desperate. "You need to know the truth before it's too late." Sandra hesitated, fear gnawing at her, but Keanu placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "If you want to face him, we'll face him together." They met in an abandoned warehouse near the edge of the city. The man's face was pale, worn with guilt. He confessed everything. Years ago, he had been tied to dangerous people who were still watching. They had used his mistakes to control him, and now they wanted to use Sandra as leverage. "I never meant for you to be part of this," he said, his voice breaking. "But now they've set their eyes on you, and I can't protect you anymore." Sandra's chest ached, but she didn't cry. For the first time, she didn't feel broken by his words. She felt stronger. Before she could answer, heavy footsteps echoed through the warehouse. Men stepped out of the shadows, their faces hidden, their presence menacing. Sandra's breath caught, but Keanu moved instinctively, stepping in front of her, his posture calm but unyielding. The leader's voice was sharp. She should have walked away. "Now she pays." Keanu's voice cut through the silence, steady as stone. "Not today." What followed was chaos, shouts, movement, the clatter of footsteps. But through it all, Keanu never left her side. He didn't fight with fury. He fought with control, with focus, every move meant to protect Sandra, to shield her. The man from her past tried to intervene, but in the end, it was Keanu's steady courage that turned the tide. When it was over, the intruders fled into the night. Their threats left hanging in the air, but their power broken. Sandra stood trembling, but Keanu's hand was still holding hers, firm and warm. She turned to him, her eyes wide, tears spilling freely now. "You could have walked away. You could have let me deal with this alone." He shook his head softly. "You don't leave people you care about in the dark. You stand with them even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Her voice broke as she whispered, "Keanu, I don't just care about you as a friend. I always needed you more than I realized." His gaze softened, a rare vulnerability in his eyes. And I've always carried you in my heart, Sandra. Maybe I was too afraid to say it before, but not anymore. The weight of fear lifted, replaced by something brighter. As the sun began to rise through the broken windows of the warehouse, its golden light fell across them. Sandra leaned into him, her head against his chest, and for the first time in years she felt whole. Their story was no longer about betrayal or shadows. It was about resilience, about facing the past and finding strength in love that asked for nothing but gave everything. That birthday, Sandra had wished for one true moment. What she found instead was a truth that would last far beyond a single day. She found a love born not from glamour or fame but from kindness, humility, and the courage to stay.